Hey there. Hello again. It's so good that you're here. Let's just take a moment, shall we? Just a slow, deep breath. In and out. Let the noise of the day begin to recede, just for a little while. We spend so much of our time thinking about history in capital letters, the grand pronouncements, the treaties signed, the great battles that decided the fates of empires. We learn the names of kings and presidents, of generals and inventors. It's a history of sharp edges and loud declarations, a story told from a great and distant height. But that's not the history we're going to explore tonight. We're going to a different place, a quieter place. We're going to listen for the optis, whispers in the margins, for the stories that were lived in the quiet, desperate hours between the famous dates. We're going to try and understand what it felt like for the people who weren't in the command tents or the throne rooms, but who bore the weight of it all, one sunrise at a time. This story is about a quiet horror, a slow catastrophe written not in ink but in dust. If this kind of calm, slow history helps you unwind, feel free to like the video and subscribe, but only if it genuinely brings you peace. There's no pressure here. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is right now. It's always strangely comforting to see who's out there, listening in the dark, falling asleep to the same quiet story from different corners of the world. So dim the lights. Turn on a fan if you like that soft background hum. Pull a blanket up. Settle in, get comfortable, and let's begin. You are here. But where is here? It is more than anything else a place defined by its absences. Look around you. There are no mountains to break the horizon. There are no great forests to blunt the wind. There are no deep, winding rivers to anchor the land. There is only the sky and the earth, and the space between them is a void. You live on the southern plains of the United States in the early years of the 1930s, the Oklahoma Panhandle, perhaps, or western Kansas, or eastern Colorado. It doesn't much matter. The land has a terrifying sameness. You stand on your small porch, and you can see for miles, for tens of miles. The curvature of the earth is not a concept. It is a visible, daily reality. The horizon is a razor-sharp line, a constant reminder of your own smallness. Before, in the time the old ones talk about, this was a sea of grass, a great rippling ocean of buffalo grass and blue grama, its roots woven into a dense, tough mat that held the soil in place for 1,000 years. It was a land of subtlety, of small, hardy flowers, and the intricate trails of unseen animals. But that land is gone. It is a memory now. The land is a checkerboard of failure. Your farm, and your neighbor's farm, and his neighbor's beyond that. The squares of the grid are drawn with barbed wire, a recent invention that sings a low, mournful tune when the wind finds it. Each square was plowed, turned over with an ambition that now seems like a kind of madness. The steel moldboard plow, the sodbuster, was a miracle of engineering. It sliced through that ancient mat of roots, turning the dark, rich earth up to the sun for the first time. For a few years, it worked. The wheat grew tall and golden. They called it a miracle harvest. The Great War in Europe created a hunger for it, and the prices were high. More plows came, more families, more ambition. They turned over millions of acres, chasing the promise of golden grain. They were not malicious. They were hopeful. They were told this was progress. They were told this was their destiny. They had broken the seal. They had unlocked something that should have remained buried. And now you are living with the consequences. The quality of the light here is sharp, unforgiving. From the moment the sun cracks the horizon, a perfect blood orange dome, there is no shade. There is nowhere to hide from it. The thin roof of your house, on the parched fields, on the back of your neck, it bleaches the color out of everything. The sky is a pale washed out blue, so vast and empty it feels like a weight. The sun is not a gentle life-giving force. It is an antagonist. It is a hammer. And then there is the wind. It is the other great constant in your life. It is never, ever still. In the morning, it is a whisper, a sigh across the plains. By midday, it is a steady, relentless force, pushing against you as you walk, stealing the moisture from your lips, making your eyes water. It carries the scent of the world, but there are no good scents here. There is no pine, no damp earth, no smell of rain. The air smells of dust, a dry, gritty mineral smell that coats the back of your throat. Sometimes it carries the faint, sweet, cloying smell of drought-withered crops, the ghost of a harvest that will never be. And sometimes, in the hottest months, it carries the stench of distant carrion. Some poor animal that could not outlast the heat and the thirst. The sounds of your world are small and sharp against the backdrop of that wind. The creak of the windmill, a lonely sentinel, its blades spinning tirelessly to pull water from deep within the earth. It is a sound of survival, a rhythmic, metallic groan that is both a comfort and a reminder of your desperate reliance on it. You hear the scuttling of unseen things in the dry grass stubble. A lizard, perhaps, or a scorpion. You hear the distant, melancholy lowing of your single gaunt cow. The sharp, percussive slam of your screen door, a sound that punctuates the day with futile attempts to keep the outside out. But the dominant sound is the wind, a constant low-grade moan that gets inside your head. It is the sound of emptiness, the sound of a world that has been scoured clean. The ground under your feet is no longer soil. It is a fine, powdery substance, the consistency of flour. Is what remains of the rich topsoil that was turned over with such pride. Now it is unbound. It is free. It has no loyalty to this place. When you walk, it rises in little puffs around your worn boots. It is a pale, grayish-brown color. There are no earthworms here. There are no beetles. The ground is sterile, dead. You feel a profound sense of isolation. Your nearest neighbor is a mile away. Their small farmhouse, a tiny, shimmering speck in the heat haze. You might see them once a week. Your world is your property line, the barbed wire fence that marks the edge of what is yours, this patch of failed earth. Beyond it, more failed earth. The town is a long, hot journey away. A collection of a few wooden buildings, also simmering under the same relentless sun. This environment is not a backdrop to your life. It is an active participant. It is a force that is trying to unmake you. It is constantly pressing in. The heat, the wind, The dust. It is a siege. The world outside your door is hostile. It wants to get in. It wants to cover you. It wants to erase you. You are living in the heart of a great unfolding disaster, but it doesn't arrive with a bang. It arrives with a whisper, with a grain of dust, with the relentless, patient rhythm of the wind. You stand on your porch, your hand shading your eyes, and you look out at the vast, empty expanse. The sun is beginning its long, slow descent, painting the western sky in hues of orange and bruised purple. The wind sighs, a lonely, mournful sound, and you feel a deep, gnawing dread in the pit of your stomach, because you know, with a certainty, that is bone deep, that the wind will not stop, and that tomorrow there will be more dust, more dust. This is your shelter. Do not call it a house. A house is a place of comfort, of refuge. This is a structure for survival, and it is failing. It is a small, rectangular box sitting on the open plain. It has no foundation to speak of, just some stacked stones at the corners to level it on the unforgiving ground. It is made of wood, thin planks that were affordable, shipped by rail from some distant forested place that you can barely imagine. The wood is unpainted, and the sun and the wind have bleached it to a silvery, splintered gray, like the bones of some long-dead animal. There is one room. This single space is your kitchen, your dining room, your bedroom, your entire world when the outside becomes unbearable. It is perhaps 16 feet by 20 feet. The walls are single-planked, and through the knotholes and the warped seams, you can see slivers of the blinding daylight outside. When the wind blows hard, it whistles through these cracks, a high, thin shriek that never ceases. Wind comes the dust. The floor is made of the same rough planks as the walls. They are uneven, and the gaps between them are wide enough that you can lose a coin or a button or a sewing needle. The dust settles in these cracks, a permanent feature of the geography of your home. You sweep, of course. You sweep constantly. But it is a battle you never win. 10 minutes after you are done, a fine, gritty film has already begun to reclaim the floor. The roof is made of tar paper or thin wooden shingles. It sags in the middle, a gentle, sad curve that speaks of strain. During the rare, violent thunderstorms that sometimes break the drought, it leaks. Not in a steady drip, but in a dozen small, unpredictable places. You know each of these spots intimately. You have a collection of tin cans, buckets, and pans. And the moment you hear the first rumble of thunder, you perform a frantic, well-rehearsed choreography, placing them around the room to catch the dirty water that will seep through. The sound of the rain on the roof is a deafening roar, but the sound of the drips into the pans is the sound of a brief, muddy reprieve. There are 2 windows, one on the east wall and one on the west, to catch the rising and setting sun. They are small pane squares of cheap, wavy glass. The sills are always piled with a thick layer of the finest, most insidious dust, a silt so fine it seems to defy the laws of physics. You have tried to seal the windows. You have stuffed them with rags, with old newspapers, with anything you can find. But the dust always finds a way. It is a relentless, patient invader. The atmosphere inside is thick. The air is never fresh. It is a stale mixture of the smell of cooking mostly beans and old potatoes, the smell of human bodies living in close quarters, and the ever-present chalky smell of the dust. When a storm is brewing, the air becomes heavy, charged with a strange electricity. The light that filters through the dusty window panes is dim and yellow, casting the single room in a perpetual, sickly twilight. Let's look at what you own. There is not much. Each object is essential, worn with use, and likely irreplaceable. In the corner that serves as the kitchen, there is a cast-iron stove. It is a squat, black, pot-bellied thing, your most important possession. It heats your home in the winter, cooks your food, and boils your water. It is a hungry god, constantly demanding fuel. You feed it cowed chips-dried dung ore, twisted bundles of dry weeds. Wood is a luxury you cannot afford. The stove is stained with the ghosts of 1,000 meals, and its iron door creaks like an arthritic joint. Next to it is a simple wooden table and 2 chairs. They are wobbly. Under the table is a wooden crate that serves as a pantry. Inside, you might find a sack of flour, a bag of pinto beans, a few withered potatoes, and a jar of precious lard. That's it. On the table sits a kerosene lamp. Glass chimney is perpetually cloudy, no matter how often you clean it. At night, it casts a small, flickering circle of warm, unsteady light, a tiny island in the vast ocean of darkness. The light makes the shadows in the corners of the room dance and writhe. Against the far wall is the bed. It is not a bed for one person, but for the family. A simple wooden frame with a mattress. But the mattress is not filled with feathers or soft cotton. It is a large sack, a tick, stuffed with straw or corn husks. It is lumpy and rustles every time someone moves. It smells faintly of dry grass and sleep. The blanket is wool, a coarse, heavy thing that scratches your skin, but provides a desperate warmth on cold nights. It is patched in several places with different colored thread, a small, quiet map of its long service. In another corner, a galvanized steel tub hangs on a nail. This is for washing yourself, your clothes, your children. It is a weekly ritual at best. Water is too precious to be used for bathing more often than that. To fill it is a laborious task, hauling bucket after bucket from the windmill pump. The water is cold and hard, and the soap makes a thin, unconvincing lather. These are your tools. They are an extension of your body. There is an axe, its wooden handle worn smooth and dark with the sweat and oil of your hands. You feel its familiar weight, the satisfying heft of it. Its blade is nicked and needs sharpening, a task you put off because it takes time and effort you barely have. There is a shovel, its metal edge worn thin from scraping at the hard, unyielding earth. A bucket with a rope handle for carrying water, for carrying feed, for carrying hope and despair. Each of these items is a lifeline. To lose one, to have one break, is a catastrophe. There is no store down the road to buy a replacement. There is no money for it anyway, so you maintain them. You tighten the wobbly leg of the chair. You patch the hole in the bucket. You treat these few, humble objects with a reverence born of absolute necessity. They are not possessions in the way we think of them. They are your partners in this grueling daily struggle. They are the physical proof of your existence here. This small, dusty, drafty room is your fortress. It is the only thing standing between your family and the vast, hostile world outside. You lie in your stratic bed at night and listen to the wind scour the walls, and you can feel the dust settling on your blanket, on your face, in your hair, and you pray. You pray that the roof will hold. You pray that the walls will stand. You pray that this flimsy wooden box will be enough to see you through to the morning. The sun does not rise gently here. It cracks the horizon, and your day begins. There is no alarm clock, only the first pale light seeping through the dirty windows and the growing need to escape the stale air of the single room. This is what you do. Your life is a litany of physical tasks, a rhythm of effort that begins before sunrise and does not end until long after sunset. You swing your legs out of the rustling straw mattress. The floorboards are cold and gritty beneath your bare feet. The first task is always the same: fire. You open the iron door of the stove, scoop out yesterday's ashes, and carefully arrange a new offering of twisted weeds or dried cow dung. A match is struck, a precious sliver of wood and sulfur coax the flame, blowing gently, until the fire catches and a meager warmth begins to push back against the morning chill. Then, water. You pull on your worn, cracked boots and your thin overalls and step outside. The air is cool for now, but the wind is already awake, a restless presence. You walk to the windmill, the path worn into the dirt by 1,000 identical trips. The groaning of the pump is the first real sound of your day. You work the handle, a stiff, repetitive motion, pulling your whole body into it. Up and down, up and down. The ache begins in your lower back, a familiar, dull throb. After a few minutes, water, cool and metallic tasting, gushes from the pipe. You fill the buckets, their weight stretching the muscles in your arms and shoulders as you haul them back to the house. This water is for coffee, for washing faces, for the animals. It is the fuel for the day. There is no breakfast as we might imagine it. Coffee, boiled on the stove, thick and bitter, and perhaps a piece of dry bread or a biscuit left over from the night before. You eat standing up quickly, without ceremony. Food is fuel, not pleasure. Now, the real work begins. You are a farmer, but there is no farming to be done. The fields are barren. The wheat you planted with such desperate hope in the fall has failed. It sprouted a pale green fuzz across the fields, And then the rains did not come. The sun baked it. The wind blew the soil away from its fragile roots. Now it is just a collection of withered brown stalks, brittle and dead. So what do? You fight a holding action. You do what you can to prevent the land itself from blowing away. You might have a few acres that you are trying to save. You walk the fence line, your barbed wire perimeter. The wind has piled the dust, the topsoil from your neighbor's farm in deep drifts against the wire, burying the posts. They call these tumble drifts. You take your shovel and you dig it out. The work is heavy, pointless, and maddening. The dust is light and dry. As you lift a shovelful, the wind catches it and blows it back in your face, into your eyes, down your collar. You are moving a ghost. For every shovel of dust you move, the wind brings two more to take its place. The sweat starts to run down your temples, carving clean paths through the mask of grime that is already forming on your skin. It stings your eyes. You don't wipe it away with your hand. You use your forearm, a practiced gesture. Your hands are already calloused and cracked. The dirt worked so deeply into the lines of your palms that it will never wash out. Never wash out. You have a few animals, a gaunt milk cow, her ribs showing like the hoops on a barrel. Her milk is thin, but it is something. You lead her to the small patch of ground where a few hardy weeds still grow. You check her water trough, clearing it of the scum of dust that has settled on its surface overnight. You might have a few chickens, scrawny things that scratch hopefully in the sterile dirt. Their eggs are a treasure. You guard them like gold. The sun climbs higher. The heat becomes a physical presence, pressing down on you. There is no shade. You wear a wide-brimmed hat, its brim stained with sweat. The world shimmers in the heat. Haze. The silence is broken only by the ceaseless wind and the groan of the windmill. There is a crushing monotony to the day. The tasks are repetitive, a cycle of futility. Digging out the fence line, reinforcing a corner post that the wind has loosened, patching the roof of the chicken coop with a scrap of scavenged tin. Your body is a machine, and the fuel is dwindling. Your movements are slow, deliberate. You do not waste energy. Motion is calculated, honed by years of the same labor. The ache in your back that started in the morning is now a searing pain. Your shoulders burn from the shovel. Your hands are raw. You get splinters, not just from wood, but from the sharp, dried stalks of dead weeds. You don't stop to tend to them. You just keep working. Pain is a part of the landscape, as present as the wind and the sun. As midday approaches, the heat becomes life-threatening. You retreat to the meager shade offered by the wall of the house for a few minutes. You drink deeply from a jug of water, the water that you hauled this morning. It is tepid now, but it is wet. You might chew on a piece of dried grass, your jaw, working slowly, your eyes scanning the empty horizon. What are you thinking about? Not the future. The future is an abstraction you cannot afford. Not the past. The past is a catalog of failures and disappointments. You are thinking about the next task, the next shovel of dirt, the next bucket of water. Your world has shrunk to the immediate, the physical, the tangible. You focus on the feeling of the shovel handle in your hands, the strain in your muscles. This physical reality is the only thing that is real. It is a long, slow meditation on physical effort. The afternoon wears on, a mirror of the morning. More digging, more patching, more fighting back the tide of dust. If you are lucky, you have a small garden near the house where you pour the day's dishwater, trying to keep a few tomato plants or some okra alive. You tend to it with a desperate care, your fingers gently clearing the dust from the leaves of the struggling plants as the sun finally begins to dip towards the horizon. Painting the sky in fiery colors, the work does not end. You must bring the cow in. You must gather the eggs, if there are any. You must prepare the stove for the evening meal. You haul more water. When you finally come inside for the day, your body is a symphony of aches. You are covered in a fine layer of dust that has worked its way through your clothes, into your hair, your ears, your nostrils. Your face is a mask of dirt, your eyes red-rimmed and raw. You slump into a chair at the wobbly table, your body so tired it feels like it might dissolve. This is what you do. You do not build anything. You do not create anything. You do not harvest anything. Your labor is a desperate daily attempt to simply hold on, to not be erased, to end the day in the same place you began it, with your flimsy shelter still standing, and your family still breathing. It is a victory measured in inches, in a single bucket of milk, in one more day survived. This is what you eat. But first, we must understand that food is not what you think it is. It is not about pleasure or variety or the joy of a shared meal. Food is a problem. It is a constant, nagging, daily calculation. It is the dull, hollow ache in your belly that wakes you in the morning and the anxiety that keeps you awake at night. The battle against hunger is the central, organizing principle of your existence. Look at your pantry, the wooden crate under the table. What is inside? The staples, the holy trinity of survival on the plains: beans, cornmeal, and flour. There is a large sack of pinto beans, dried and hard as pebbles. There is a bag of cornmeal, gritty and yellow. There is a sack of white flour. These are not choices. They are the bedrock of your diet. The day's meals are a series of variations on this theme. For breakfast, you might have biscuits. You mix flour, a pinch of precious salt, and a spoonful of lard or bacon grease, if you have it. You add water, the hard, mineral-tasting water you pumped this morning, and work it into a stiff dough. Your hands, though scrubbed, are never truly clean, and a faint taste of dust seems to find its way into everything. You shape the biscuits and bake them on the cast iron stove. They are heavy, dense things designed to fill the stomach, not to delight the palate. You eat them plain, or perhaps with a smear of thin, watery gravy made from flour, water, and a little salt. The main meal of the day, eaten in the evening after the labor is done, is almost always the same. It is a pot of beans. You soak them in the morning, and they have been simmering on the back of the stove all day, slowly absorbing the water and the heat. The smell of them fills the small room, a thick, earthy, and endlessly monotonous aroma. If you are lucky, you might have a small piece of salt pork or bacon to add to the pot for flavor. You would have rendered its fat first, saving every drop of the grease in a can by the stove. That grease is a treasure. a source of flavor and calories that you use with the miserliness of a dragon hoarding gold. The beans are ladled into tin plates. Alongside them, you serve cornbread. You mix the cornmeal with water and salt, maybe an egg from one of your scrawny chickens, if it's a good day, and you bake it in a skillet in the oven. The cornbread is rough, with a coarse, gritty texture that scrapes the roof of your mouth. It is not the sweet, cake-like cornbread of a gentler time or place. It is a brick of sustenance. You use it to scoop up the beans, to sop up every last bit of the thin broth from your plate. Nothing is wasted. This is the taste of your life. The bland, earthy flavor of beans, the gritty texture of cornmeal, the faint, greasy taste of old lard. There is no freshness. There are no spices, save for salt and maybe a little pepper. There is no variety. You eat this meal tonight. You ate it last night, and you will eat it tomorrow night. The sheer, soul-crushing repetition is a kind of psychological warfare. Sometimes there are small additions. If your small, struggling garden produces, you might have boiled okra, slimy and thick, or a few stewed tomatoes. Their acidity a welcome shock to the palate. In the spring, you might go out onto the plains and gather wild greens, what the old-timers call weeds, lamb's quarters, curly dock, plants that are tough and bitter but can be boiled into something edible. They taste of the earth, of bitterness, of survival. If a chicken stops laying, you do not keep feeding it. You butcher it. This is a solemn event. You make it last. First, you have the fried chicken itself, a rare and joyful feast, even though the bird is tough and stringy. Then you boil the carcass, picking every last shred of meat from the bones to be used in a soup or a stew. The bones themselves are boiled until they fall apart, creating a thin, weak broth that will be the base for another meal. Every part of the animal is used. Nothing is discarded. On the darkest days, when the flour sack is nearly empty and the bean pot is low, you eat what you must. You might have heard stories, or perhaps you've had to do it yourself. You catch the jackrabbits that dart across the plains. They are tough and sinewy, and many people believe they are unfit for human consumption. But they are meat. You skin them, roast them over the fire, and chew the gamey, stringy flesh from the bones. Some people, in the deepest desperation, have been known to eat tumbleweeds, boiling the young green shoots to soften them. The taste is vile, the nutritional value almost zero, but it fills the stomach. It quiets the gnawing emptiness for a few hours. Water is a constant concern. The water from your well is clean, but it is hard. It tastes of the minerals deep in the earth. You drink it because you must. Milk from your one thin cow is a luxury. It is thin and bluish, not the rich, creamy liquid of a well-fed dairy animal. You ration it carefully, giving most of it to the children if you have them. Food preparation is a constant task, and it is done in an environment that is actively hostile to cleanliness. The dust, that fine pervasive powder, settles on every surface. You cover the dough with a cloth as it rests. You keep the lid on, the pot at all times, but you cannot win. You learn to accept the slight grittiness in your bread, the film of dust that you wipe from the rim of your cup. You eat the dust, It becomes a part of you. There is no pleasure here. There is only a grim daily calculus. How much flour is left? How many more days until it's gone? Can the beans stretch for another week? The anxiety is a constant low hum. Beneath the surface of your thoughts, hunger is a predator, circling your small home, waiting for you to run out of ammunition. Every meal you eat is a small victory, a temporary truce in a war that you know. Deep down, you are losing. You are a free American. You own this land. This is what you were told. This is the promise that brought you here. But you know, in the quiet, desperate hours of the night, that it is a lie. You do not own this land. The land owns you. And you, in turn, are owned by others. This is who you serve. It is not a king in a distant castle or a lord on a great estate. The power that governs your life is more abstract, more modern, and in some ways more cruel. You serve the bank. You serve the note. You serve the quiet, crushing logic of debt. The man you fear is not a knight in armor. He is a man in a dusty Ford Model A. He wears a suit, even in this heat, a symbol of his separation from the world, of physical labor. He doesn't knock on your door with a sword. He comes with a briefcase full of papers you don't fully understand. He is the man from the bank in town. He might be polite. He might even express his sympathy. But his eyes are hard, and his purpose is unwavering. You see, you didn't buy this land with cash. Who could? You bought it with a loan. You bought the tractor, that magnificent, powerful machine that is now sitting idle and rusting near the barn. With a loan, you bought the seed that withered and died in the fields with a loan. The bank fronted you the dream, and you signed your name on a piece of paper, a mortgage, that tied you to this piece of dirt with invisible chains of obligation. In the good years, the wheat was plentiful and the prices were high. Making the payment was possible. It was still a worry, a shadow at the edge of your prosperity, but it was manageable. Now, there is no wheat. There is no income, but the note is still due. The numbers on that piece of paper do not care about the drought. They do not care that the sky is brassy and the earth is blowing away. The numbers are relentless, so you serve. Your daily life is a testament to this service. Every small act of survival, every desperate attempt to keep the farm from completely disintegrating, is an act of service to the debt. You are not just trying to feed your family. You are trying to appease this distant, impersonal god of finance. This power manifests not as a command, but as a constant gnawing pressure. It is the reason you cannot leave. You are tied to this place. To abandon the farm is to abandon the slim, desperate hope that you might one day be able to pay what you owe. To leave is to become a tenant on someone else's land, or worse, to join the endless, shuffling columns of the displaced, heading west with everything you own, piled onto a sputtering truck. The hierarchy is clear. At the bottom, there is you. Above you is the local store owner who has extended you credit for flour and salt and kerosene. You owe him money, so you approach him with a sense of shame, of supplication. His willingness to give you more supplies is the difference between eating and not eating. He has power over you. Above the store owner is the banker. He holds the mortgage on your farm and the note on your equipment. He has the power to foreclose, to post a notice on your door that declares your dream officially dead. To have the sheriff come and evict you from this place you have poured your sweat and blood into. His decisions, made in a cool office in town, can unmake your entire world and above the banker. You don't know forces you cannot see. The commodities market in a far-off city like Chicago, where men in suits shout numbers that determine the price of the wheat you cannot grow. The federal government in Washington, a place so remote and powerful it might as well be on the moon. You hear rumors of relief programs, of new deals, but they are just whispers on the wind. Stories of a world that has not yet reached you here, in the heart of the dust. This power is felt in its absences. The absence of help, the absence of mercy, the absence of a fair price. You feel a deep and abiding sense of betrayal. You did everything you were supposed to do. You worked hard, you were thrifty, believed in the promise. And now you are being punished for a crime you did not commit. You did not make the rain stop. You did not make the wind blow. The relationship is one of fear and obligation. When you see the banker's car coming down your dirt track, your stomach clenches. Your heart beats faster. You must put on a brave face, a face of grim determination. You must convince him that you are still a good risk, that you are still working, that if only the rains would come, you could make good on your debt. It is a performance of solvency, a desperate play acted on a stage of bankruptcy. You owe taxes, too, to the county. Another piece of paper that arrives in the mail, another demand for money you do not have. Failure to pay the taxes is another path to losing your land. So you are caught in a web. The bank, the store, the county, each one has a claim on you, on your labor, on your future. You do not think of this in terms of political systems. You think of it in terms of Mr. Henderson at the First National Bank. You think of it in terms of the foreclosure notice you saw posted on your neighbor's farm last month. You think of the quiet, grim-faced family packing their belongings onto a trailer, not meeting your eyes as you watch from your own porch. You see their shame, their defeat, and you see your own possible future. So you serve. You serve by staying. You serve by enduring. You serve by shoveling the dust that buries your fences, by patching the roof that leaks, by coaxing a few vegetables from the scorched earth. It is an act of desperate faith, not in God, but in the possibility that you can somehow, against all odds, satisfy the demands of the men in suits and the relentless logic of the numbers on the page. The weight of this hierarchy is not a sudden blow, but a slow, steady, crushing pressure that is squeezing the life out of you. One day at a time, beyond the tangible fears, the fear of hunger, the fear of foreclosure, lies a deeper, colder dread. It is the fear of that which you cannot see, cannot touch, and cannot understand. This is the psychological landscape of your world, a place haunted by unseen forces and explained by a tapestry of belief, superstition, and raw, primal terror. The greatest abstract threat is the dust itself, not just as a physical nuisance, but as a malevolent entity. It is not weather. It is a judgment. It is a plague. You see, the sky turned from blue to a sickly yellowish brown, and then to a terrifying, rolling black. The daylight vanishes at 2 in the afternoon. The world outside your window ceases to exist, replaced by a churning, boiling wall of dirt. This is not natural. This feels like the end of the world. They call it a black blizzard. The name is an understatement. Inside your flimsy house, you huddle with your family. You have stuffed wet rags into every crack around every window and door. But the dust gets in. It is a fine, choking silt that penetrates everything. The air becomes thick, unbreathable. You tie a damp handkerchief over your nose and mouth, and still you feel the grit in your lungs. You light the kerosene lamp, but its small flame is a tiny, struggling pinprick in the oppressive brown gloom. The only sound is the roar of the wind, a sound like a freight train that does not pass, but instead stays, screaming for hours. In this suffocating darkness, your mind turns to explanation. The preachers in their small wooden churches have an answer. This is God's wrath. This is the punishment for your pride, for the world's sins. You have broken the land, and now God is breaking you. You think of the plagues of Egypt, the locusts, the darkness. It feels biblical because it is a disaster of biblical proportions. You wonder, in the secret, terrified corners of your heart, what you did to deserve this. This fear gives birth to a specific medical terror. Dust pneumonia. You've seen it, your neighbor's child, coughing for weeks, a dry, racking cough that shook his small body. Then the fever, the struggle to breathe. The doctor, if one could be reached, could do nothing. The child died, his lungs, they said, coated and solidified with mud. You look at your own children, their faces pale in the lamplight, and you watch them breathe. Every cough, every sniffle, sends a spike of pure terror through you. You listen. To them, sleep, your ear tuned to the sound of their respiration, praying that it remains clear and easy. To ward off these unseen dangers, you rely on a mixture of faith and folk magic. Superstition is as real and as practical as a hammer. The idea that a jealous neighbor's glance can bring misfortune, sicken your cow, or wither your garden. So you are careful. You avoid boasting about any small bit of good luck. Sickness is not just germs. It is an imbalance, a punishment, a hostile influence. For a cough, you might brew a tea from horehound weeds. You might make a plaster of mustard and lard and place it on the chest to draw out the sickness. These remedies are passed down through generations. They are what your grandmother did and her grandmother before her. You cling to them, not just because you hope they work, but because they are a form of action. They are something to do in the face of a terror you cannot otherwise fight. There are smaller, daily superstitions. A bird flying into the house is a terrible omen, a harbinger of death. The hoot of an owl at the wrong time of night can signal misfortune. You might nail a horseshoe over your door, open end up, to catch good luck and keep evil from entering. It's not that you consciously, rationally believe it will stop a dust storm, but in a world where you have no control, any small ritual that offers a sliver of agency is a ritual worth performing. The landscape itself feels haunted. The wind, in its constant, mournful cry, sounds like a voice, like 1,000 wailing ghosts. The abandoned homesteads that dot the plains are objects of fear. You see a neighbor's house, half buried in a dune of dust, its windows like vacant eyes, and you feel a chill. You imagine the ghosts of the family that fled, their hopes and dreams buried along with their home. At night, the darkness is absolute, a profound ink-black void that presses against your small house. And in this darkness, every strange sound is magnified. The scuttling of a mouse in the wall, the groan of the house settling. These sounds become the footsteps of something malevolent, something just outside in the dark. Your dreams are vivid and terrifying. You dream of drowning, not in water, but in dust. You dream of your teeth falling out, a classic omen of death. You wake up in a cold sweat, your heart pounding, the taste of grit in your mouth. And for a terrifying moment, you don't know if the dream has ended or if the reality has just begun. This world of abstract fear is a direct result of the collapse of the world you thought you knew. When the predictable rhythms of nature, the cycle of rain, planting, and harvest are broken, you are cast adrift in a sea of uncertainty. In the absence of scientific explanation that is accessible to you, you reach for the supernatural. You create a narrative to make sense of the senseless. It is a narrative of sin and punishment, of malevolent spirits and protective charms, of omens and portents. This fear is a constant companion. It sits with you at the dinner table. It lies down with you in bed. It is a low-frequency hum of anxiety that underlies every moment of your waking life. It is the chilling recognition that the forces that govern your life are not only powerful, but also unknowable, and that you are utterly, terrifyingly at their mercy. The coming of night is not a gentle transition, it is a fall. The sun, your great antagonist, touches the horizon, and the world is plunged into an ancient and profound darkness. There are no streetlights to soften the edges of the town. There are no glowing cities to create a false dawn on the horizon. There is only the darkness of the plains, a blackness so complete it feels like a substance, a thick, cold liquid in which your small house is submerged. This is how you rest. First, the final tasks of the day are completed in the deepening twilight. The last bucket of water is hauled. The door is latched. The wet rags are stuffed back into the cracks around the windows. The inside of the house is now a fortress against the night. The kerosene lamp is lit. It is your only source of light. Its flickering, yellow glow pushes the darkness back a few feet, creating a small, intimate circle of visibility. It is enough to see the faces of your family, to see your plate, to see your hands. But beyond this circle, the corners of the room are filled with deep, dancing shadows. The familiar objects of your life, the stove, the washtub, the chairs lose their solidness and become strange, distorted shapes in the wavering light. The world shrinks to the size of your kitchen table. The silence of the plains at night is not a true silence. The wind, your constant companion, often dies down after sunset, and its absence is more unsettling than its presence. Into this vacuum of sound, new noises emerge, each one sharp and distinct in the vast stillness. The creak of the floorboards as someone shifts their weight. The distant, lonely howl of a coyote a sound that raises the hair on your arms. The frantic, dry scrabbling of a mouse inside the walls. Every sound is an event, a small drama played out in the immense theater of the dark. There's no privacy. Here, the single room is a communal space for all of life's activities, and that includes sleep. The bed, with its lumpy mattress of straw or corn husks, is shared. You sleep together for warmth, for comfort, and out of simple necessity. Lie side by side, your bodies arranged like puzzle pieces. You are intimately aware of the breathing patterns of your spouse, of your children. You feel the twitch of their muscles as they dream. You smell the scent of their hair, their skin. This forced intimacy is both a comfort and a burden. It is a constant reminder of your shared vulnerability, but it also erases the very concept of being alone. The physical reality of the bed is one of discomfort. The straw rustles and shifts beneath you, never quite conforming to the shape of your body. It pokes through the thin fabric of the mattress tick, pricking your skin. In the winter, the cold seeps up from the floorboards, a damp, chilling presence that even the thickest wool blanket cannot entirely defeat. You huddle together, sharing body heat, a small island of warmth in a sea of cold. In the summer, the heat is suffocating. The air in the room is thick and still, and the sweat trickles down your body, making the straw mattress feel damp and sticky. Before the age of electricity and constant light, sleep itself was different. Many people in your time experience what historians would later call segmented sleep. You do not necessarily sleep through the entire night in one long, broken stretch. You go to bed soon after darkness falls, exhausted from the day's labor. You fall into a deep, heavy slumber, a near-run consciousness that lasts for several hours. This is the first sleep. Then, sometime after midnight, you wake up. The world is utterly black and silent. This is not a restless, anxious waking. It is a natural and expected period of quiet consciousness. The house is still. The others in the bed are breathing deeply around you. This is a time for contemplation. You lie in the dark and you think. You might think about the weather, listening for any change in the wind that might signal rain. You might think about the dwindling sack of flour, a familiar, anxious calculation. You might say a silent prayer, your words unheard by anyone but yourself, and whatever God might be listening in the dark. This is also a time when the boundary between the waking world and the world of spirits feels thin. Your mind might turn to the dead. You remember the face of a parent or a child lost to sickness. The darkness seems to hold their memories too. Make them feel closer. Dreams are significant. You might lie awake, puzzling over a dream you just had, searching for its meaning. Was it an omen? A warning? A message from God? A dream of a good harvest could sustain your hope for days. A dream of death could cast a pall of dread over everything. After an hour or so of this quiet wakefulness, you feel the pull of sleep again. You shift your position on the rustling mattress, close your eyes, and descend into the second sleep, which carries you through to the morning. This pattern of rest shapes your experience of the night. The night is not just a void between days of work. It is a space with its own character, its own rhythms. It is a time of vulnerability, of cold, of fear. But it is also a time of profound intimacy, of quiet reflection, of a connection to a world of dreams and spirits that the harsh light of day obscures. You lie in the darkness, feeling the slow, steady rise and fall of your child's chest next. To you, you listen to the vast, silent world outside your thin walls, and you wait for the first hint of gray light in the east, the signal that the siege of the night is ending, and the battle of the day is about to begin anew. You thought you knew what hardship was. You thought the daily grind of dust and debt, of hunger and heat, was the worst it could be. You were wrong. This is the breaking point. This is the day the sky falls. It begins as a strange stillness. The relentless wind, the constant soundtrack to your life, dies down. The air becomes heavy, oppressive. A strange yellowish copper light bathes the landscape, making the dead fields and the gray farmhouse look alien and sinister. The chickens in the yard fall silent, sensing something you cannot. The cow becomes restless, lowing nervously. You stand on your porch and look to the north. At first, it's just a smudge on the horizon, a dark line low to the ground. You've seen dusters before, hundreds of them, but this is different. This line is not brown. It is black, and it is growing, rising, swelling like some monstrous living thing. It doesn't just move across the land. It consumes it. The dread that begins in your stomach is cold and sharp. This is not just another storm. This is the storm. You scream for your family. There is no time for careful preparation. This is a panicked scramble for survival. Get inside. Get inside now. You shove the children through the door. You grab the buckets of water you hauled this morning and throw them inside. You slam the door, plunging the room into a dim twilight. The roaring has begun. It is not like the sound of wind, you know. It is a deep, guttural, grinding roar. The sound of 1 billion particles of earth being hurled through the air at 100 miles per hour. It is the sound of the world being unmade. You and your wife frantically shove wet rags into the cracks of the door, the windowsills. But it's a futile gesture, like trying to stop the ocean with a teacup. The sky outside the window is gone. There is no horizon. There is only a churning, boiling wall of blackness. It is noon, but it is as dark as the deepest midnight. You light the kerosene lamp. Its flame sputters and dances wildly as the air pressure in the room plummets. The house begins to shake. It is not a gentle trembling. It is a violent shuddering, as if a giant has seized it and is trying to tear it apart. You hear the high-pitched shriek of nails pulling out of wood. A sound like a gunshot rings out as a shingle is torn from the roof. The dust begins to pour in streams. It pours through the keyhole, through the gaps in the floorboards, through the sealed window frames. It looks like black smoke. In minutes, the air is so thick, you cannot see the opposite wall. You tie wet handkerchiefs over your faces, but it does little good. You are breathing it, eating it. It coats your tongue, your teeth. Your every breath is a gasp for air that isn't there, a desperate pull against a suffocating weight. The children are screaming. It is a sound of pure animal terror. You pull them close, trying to shield them with your own body. But there is no shield. You are all in the belly of the beast. You huddle together in the center of the room, away from the shuddering walls, and you listen to the roar. It is a sound that bypasses your ears and vibrates deep inside your bones. Time ceases to have meaning. Are you in here for 10 minutes or 10 hours? The absolute blackness, the deafening roar. The choking air is a complete sensory overload and a complete sensory deprivation at the same time. The rules of survival have been broken. Your home is no longer a shelter. It is a trap. The distinction between inside and outside has been erased. The hostile world has breached your final defense. You feel a sense of profound, cosmic insignificance. You are a tiny, fragile creature caught in a geological event of unimaginable power. Your life, your struggles, your hopes, they mean nothing to this storm. It will pass over you, and it will not even notice you were there in the midst of the terror. Small, desperate choices are made. You might try to keep the lamp lit, a tiny, defiant act against the overwhelming darkness. You might try to sing a song to calm the children, your voice a thin, reedy thing, swallowed by the roar. You might just hold your family, a silent, desperate communion of touch in the suffocating blackness. Then, as slowly as it began, the peak of the storm passes. The roar lessens, diminishing from a deafening shriek to a deep moan. The absolute blackness outside the window lightens, first to a deep twilight, and then to the same eerie, yellow-brown gloom that preceded the storm. The immediate terror subsides, replaced by a stunned, shell-shocked silence. You are all still alive. You look at each other, your faces caked in black mud, where the dust mixed with your tears and sweat. Your eyes are red and wild. You open the door, and you see a world transformed, a world buried. The landscape you knew, as harsh as it was, is gone. Drifts of fine, black dust are piled against your house, reaching halfway up the walls. The chicken coop has vanished, completely submerged. The rusting tractor is just a vague shape under a new black dune. Your neighbor's house, a mile away, is no longer visible. The very geography of your world has been rewritten. You take a step outside, and the dust is up to your knees. It is as fine as talcum powder. This is not just any dirt. This is the rich topsoil from hundreds of miles away in the north, from the fields of Kansas and Nebraska. It has been scoured from their land and dumped on yours. This is the breaking point. This is the moment when the last fragile thread of hope snaps. This is no longer a drought. This is a geological catastrophe. The world you knew is gone, buried under a black tide of failure. There is no coming back from this. The small, desperate choices are over. Now, there is only one choice left: to stay in this buried world, or to leave. To abandon the dream, abandon the land, abandon everything you have ever known, and become a refugee from the weather. In a world that has become hostile and unpredictable, you cling to structure. You find it in the rhythm of your daily labor, in the walls of your small home, and most profoundly, in the tenets of your faith. This is what you believe. For you, a farmer on the southern plains, this belief is almost certainly a form of stern plain-spoken Protestant Christianity, your spiritual life is anchored by two things: the Bible on your small table and the modest, white-painted church in the nearest town. The Bible is not a book of gentle stories and comforting psalms. It is a manual for understanding your suffering. When you read it or hear it read, you are drawn to the stories of hardship and endurance. You see yourself in the trials of Job, a good man who lost everything yet did not curse God. His story is your story. The plagues of Egypt are not ancient history. They are a mirror of the dust and the pests that afflict your own land. The 40 years the Israelites spent wandering in the desert feels like a literal description of your life in this vast, arid wilderness. The Bible gives your suffering a narrative. It frames it not as a random, meaningless catastrophe, but as a test, a trial of your faith. This belief is both a comfort and a burden. It is a comfort because it suggests there is a reason for your pain. It is part of a divine plan that is too vast for you to comprehend. Your suffering has purpose. You are not just a victim of bad weather. You are a soldier in a spiritual struggle. This idea gives you a profound sense of dignity in the face of degradation. But it is also a heavy burden. If this is a test from God, then your response is critical. To despair is not just a personal failing, it is a spiritual one. To give up is to fail the test. The faith demands that you endure, that you submit, that you accept your lot with a grim and pious fortitude. Furthermore, there is the gnawing question of sin. Is this a test, or is it a punishment? You lie awake in the dark, sifting through your life, your thoughts, your small resentments and moments of pride, wondering which of them could have angered God enough to unleash this hell on earth. The faith offers a framework for your suffering, but it also makes you partially responsible for it. The church is the physical center of your spiritual world. It is a simple, unadorned building, perhaps with a small steeple pointing a finger toward the sky. Inside, there are no golden icons or stained glass masterpieces. There are hard wooden pews, a simple pulpit, and a congregation of people whose faces are as worn and weary as your own. Going to church on Sunday is a ritual that breaks the monotony of your labor. You wash your face and hands with precious water. You put on your one set of good clothes, which are simply your cleanest, most patched overalls and shirt. The journey to town is an effort, but it is necessary. The service itself is an immersion in a world of certainty. The language of the preacher is stark and powerful. He speaks of sin, damnation, redemption, and grace. He doesn't offer easy solutions. He doesn't promise that the rains will come next week if you just pray hard enough. Instead, he reinforces the idea of the trial. He preaches endurance. He tells you to look to Jesus, who suffered on the cross, and to find strength in his example. He reminds you that your reward is not of this world, that your true home is in heaven, a place with no dust, no debt, no drought. Much of the formal language, the King James English of the Bible, is archaic and beautiful, a stark contrast to the plain, functional language of your daily life. You may not understand every word, but you understand the tone. It is one of authority, of ancient wisdom, of divine truth. The hymns you sing are powerful expressions of this faith. They are songs of sorrow and hope, of struggle and deliverance. You sing with your neighbors, your voices joining together, a sound of fragile, human community in the vast, empty landscape. For a few moments, you are not alone in your struggle. The local priest or preacher is a figure of immense importance. He is more than just a spiritual guide. He is a community leader, a counselor, a source of news, and sometimes a distributor of aid. He is the one you turn to when a child dies, when the bank forecloses, when your hope finally runs out. He may not have much to offer in the way of material help, but he offers a narrative. He frames your personal tragedy within the larger, epic story of faith. He gives you prayers to say, scriptures to read, a ritual to perform. He helps you make sense of the senseless. You pray to God directly in your own simple words. You pray. For rain, it is a constant, desperate refrain. You pray for the health of your children. You pray for the strength to face another day. You pray for forgiveness, though you are not always sure for what. You also have a relationship with a host of saints and figures from the Bible. You might pray to Saint Joseph, as the patron of fathers and workers, or to Mary, the mother who knew suffering. They are intermediaries, figures who feel closer, more accessible than the vast, omnipotent God the Father. This spiritual structure is the invisible scaffolding that holds your world together. When the earth is blowing away and the institutions of the banks, the government have failed you, your faith is the last thing you have left. It doesn't fill your stomach or pay your debts, but it provides a reason to endure. It tells you that your quiet, desperate survival is not meaningless. It is an act of devotion, a testament to a power greater than the dust. It is both the source of your deepest anxieties and the wellspring of your most profound strength. And so, we come to the end of our story, but there is no great climax of action. There is no cavalry charge, no sudden, miraculous rain that washes the world clean. For you, the story does not end with a dramatic flourish. It simply continues, or it stops. This brings us to the final quiet question, the one that hangs in the dusty air over all the years. How did you endure? When the land itself turned against you, when the sky fell, when the institutions you trusted abandoned you, when your body ached and your stomach was empty, when fear was your constant companion and hope was a distant memory. Why did you not simply lie down in the dust and let it cover you? Why did you not revolt in a wave of fire and fury against the banker, the sheriff, the faceless system that was grinding you into the earth? Some did. Some took that path. Their stories are loud and tragic, but most did not. You did not. And the answer to how and why is the true forgotten victory of this history. It is the climax that takes place not in a single moment, but over 1,000 relentless days. Your endurance was a form of rebellion. It was a quiet, stubborn, and profoundly human act of defiance against a system designed to crush your humanity. Your victory was not in fighting, but in persisting. Think of it. Your rebellion was in the act of getting out of the straw-tick bed each morning when your body screamed for rest. It was a vote for life in the face of a world that felt like death. It was in the shared cup of bitter coffee the small, unspoken ritual of facing another day together. It was in the telling of a story to a child in the suffocating darkness of a black blizzard, creating a tiny world of imagination as the real world was being torn apart. Your rebellion was in the songs you sang, the old hymns, the mournful ballads. To sing in the face of such overwhelming silence and sorrow is a radical act. It is to declare that your spirit is not yet broken. It is to fill the air so thick with dust with something of your own creation, something that is beautiful and human. It was in the desperate, careful tending of a single, struggling tomato plant, coaxing a small, red fruit from the dead earth. It was an act of insane optimism, a belief in a future that all evidence suggested would never arrive. It was in the sharing of a crust of bread with a neighbor whose own sack of flour had finally run out. In a world that had been reduced to the barest, most brutal calculus of individual survival. To share what little you had was to reject that logic entirely. It was a declaration that your humanity was more important than your hunger. This was your strength. It wasn't the strength of muscles, though you had that. It was the strength of community, however fragile. It was the strength of routine. It was the strength of a love that had been stripped of all romance and sentimentality and was now a fierce, practical, unwavering commitment to the survival of others. You endured because to do otherwise would be to let the dust win. Not just the dust of the earth, but the dust of despair. You fought back not with weapons, but with the mundane, heroic acts of daily life. You washed clothes, you patched roofs, you told jokes, you held hands. You raised children, teaching them their letters by the flickering light of a kerosene lamp. An investment in a future you could not see. This is the forgotten horror of the American Dust Bowl. Not just the environmental catastrophe, but the slow, grinding attempt to erase the human spirit. And this is the forgotten victory. The discovery that the human spirit is not found in grand gestures, but in the small, quiet, stubborn refusal to be erased. Your strength was in your stillness, in your persistence, in your profound and heartbreaking ability to simply be there on the land, a quiet testament to the enduring power of a single human life. You survived. And in this story, survival is the most profound and triumphant rebellion of all.